Hi, and welcome to another pre-race show for the AOSC 10. Of course, we are going to review round number 12 from Long Beach, Southern California, and have a look at round 13, which is coming this week from Silverstone. But big shout out to all of our sponsors, of course, the JINX Shifters, AJ Insurance Services, Simrigs.com, Sydney Computers, Bowler Media and Sideways Photography, Race Circuit Art Australia, and, of course, Track Cancer Gourmets. Now, back in the commentary box once again, joining me here on the pre-race show is, of course, Matthew Norris. And back from his debut out there in season 10 of AOSC as a driver is Daniel Lee. Welcome back, Dan.
G'day. Great to be back.
How was it on Friday night?
It was a good lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. It was very interesting to see not only how these cars now perform, but also kind of bump shoulders with the class of season 10.
And Norrie, how are you feeling about Dan's result?
Dejected.
Just one simple word, just summed up what you probably heard on the commentary stream on Friday night. But yeah, we'll get into that. And of course, don't forget, if you haven't already, get to the YouTube channel, like and subscribe. That one for us, of course, AOSC TV. And this week we thought, just due to get some team orders there and what's going on out there, we thought we'd drag in someone else from the Coda Simsport team, Dan. And this week, Jay Borg joins us here on the show. Welcome, Jaden.
Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's fantastic to have you back in here. Now, just tell us really, you would have spoken to Dan after the race. How big is his head now?
I think hopefully he's going to stick back to the commentary, but no, it was good to have him in the car.
Did you hear that, Dan? You're not wanted now. You're just back in the commentary team.
I'm okay with that. That's fine.
Oh, mate, there's going to be a lot to go through. Of course, that single lap shootout that we had, of course, some good results for some people, some not so good, and we've got plenty to talk about when it comes to that. Also, concrete jungle, safety cars, there's so much to go through. But first of all, let's check out the top 10. Let's see them now. Winning once again and on the top of the podium, of course, was James Scott. In second, Andrew Dyson gets there. Corey Shepherd ended up in third place. Brian Borg in fourth. Damien Johnson in fifth place. Aaron Dodd in sixth in the end. Adam Briggs back in seventh. In eighth was Rob Bowden. Ninth was Reece Keane. And rounding out the top 10 was Kyle Stokes tonight. Gents, that was from last round. And so much to unravel here. I know, Dan, you want to talk about some of the qualifying, the single lap shootouts. There was some good and some bad.
Yeah, the single lap qualifying run really gave us a pretty mixed bag. I mean, we saw a fantastic job done by Logan Barnett in the Frog Leap racing car to qualify, first out of the non-top 10 contenders, but he held his own and managed to come home with the fifth qualifying position overall out there. A few surprises, though, that we didn't expect to see the likes of Jordan Ross, Tom Freer, and Ratu making contact with the wall on the run through. That unfortunately, those guys mitigated their laps. They started at the back of the field, and it made for a tough night for those guys working their way through.
Yeah, I know. We were watching this, weren't we, Norrie, from outside, and some uncharacteristic moves after we saw practice. We thought we'd probably see a few more getting through, but we did speak about it, the risk of the concrete jungle.
Absolutely. It's one of the things about a concrete jungle. There is always a risk just to the driver's left or right, depending on where they put the car. One of my standouts, though, is Brian Bingle Borg, who managed to come back from a DNF at Charlotte and ended up in the top 4 at Long Beach. So that was an awesome job from Bingle Borgie. I would also like to mention that Dan Lee did out-qualify a few of the top-name Synergy drivers that only happened to crash into walls when I started speaking. So that just might have been a bit of a curse from the comm box, but that was me.
We're going to blame Norrie. Now, Jaden, you've got on the show this week. One lucky thing is Norrie hasn't driven your car. So, you haven't had too bad a night at this one.
Yeah. No, it was, hopefully, that's probably the reason why I've stayed off the walls and away from most of the other cars. So there's been a few, but most of the others.
How did you find the single? I mean, you guys having your single lap shootout. It wasn't you weren't in the telecast one, but how difficult was it, and how do you prepare for that?
It's a bit difficult because you get to that point, just after your late practice and quali where you do a bit of your race runs and you get one lap to try and do the best. And unfortunately, my quali is not that great. I don't have the mental capacity of trying to process a one fast hot lap. I do struggle to output that.
And Dan, I mean, we've seen so many guys once again up the back of the pack, which meant there's a little bit of carnage there because you've got some faster drivers trying to make their way through and some guys probably a bit further up than they normally are.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that was evident off the start of the grid. I mean, we saw some contact down both lap 1 and lap 3 down around that fountain section where the road really does narrow. It's basically single file trying to work their way through there. And for a lot of those guys at the back that were trying to filter their way back in, just struggling to get their lines through. And I think the big one on lap 3 down into that fountain section was the contact between Michael Taliancic and Thomas Hinds. Those guys ended up off the side of the wall. Looked like only 2 or 3 cars involved in it, but then everyone else just had to sort of sneak their way through. So it was a little bit tricky at the opening, but once everything sort of filtered out, it was really good racing.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Taliancic, Mickey T, what do we say about him? It's another 11 positions this week he had to make up. So I just doing the quick sums, what did we say last week? It's like 44 positions. So he's up to about 55 positions in 3 rounds. That's just absolutely phenomenal, Norrie.
It's an incredible, I mean, it would be worse if his qualifying was better, but his qualifying hasn't been so great. So starting in the back and getting all those positions, but being treated to a real good showing of passing.
Yeah, we are. And good to see back, actually, Brian Borg with a bit better qualifying this week and got himself back in there and ended up 4th, so just outside of the podium, guys. So he's had a shocker a few weeks, but it looks like he's back into some form.
Absolutely. And I think, look at what he did in qualifying. It was P6, come home in a 4th position. And both of those Premier Racing cars were very, very strong out there with not only their setup, but their racecraft, the whole event. Yeah,
I have to put it out there too to Daiso. I mean, what a struggle that was, but a bit of a tussle, I suppose, with him and Corey Shepherd. I do notice that Corey Shepherd just looked like the tyres went off for a little bit there. Maybe he just pushed him a little bit too hard and he backed off for a bit, but in the final 3 laps, he really challenged him again. So that was great to watch that little battle for second position between those two.
It was super encouraging to see Corey having, because he sort of ran with James in the opening stanza of the race, but after that second safety car, did look like he had a bit of a contact with the wall, and that was sort of what curtailed that run. And unfortunate for Corey, but every week maturing, getting better, getting stronger, and he'll be up there soon enough on the top step.
No, he definitely will be. A number of names there. We saw Jordan Ross copped a penalty. That saw him get pushed back. He had a bit of a yo-yo back and forth. Damien Johnson strong once again. So, he's becoming pretty strong. It'll be interesting to see where he sits in the championship as we, a bit further in the show, we look at that one from the Synergy Sim Racing because he was catching up to, obviously, a couple of the others there, which, Jordan Ross was beating him in the championship previous to this round. Aaron Dodd came back. I mean, here's at a couple there where he's just been involved in some incidents. So, see him get sick was good to see him back. And Kyle Stokes pretty quick again and ended up 10th. But, of course, so much went on throughout that race, and we're going to talk about it a bit later. But the other thing we need to talk about, 2 safety cars. Now, I said 3, you all said 2, so you got it right. Were we surprised to only see 2? I mean, with the amount of carnage we've seen, a lot of, guys sort of making panel damage, but not really pushing people off the road and cars spinning out.
I was surprised to see a safety car almost caused a safety car by piling into the fence. So well done, Scotty Chambers, for that one. And your parking on the second one was brilliant too. But it was, with the concrete canyon, I expected a lot more safety cars. It was sort of a bit eerie to go that deep into the race before we actually saw one. So, yeah, safety cars, I'm glad I picked it right, but it was weird to see only 2.
Yeah, I mean, the week before we saw it in the opening corner. This time it took 14 laps for our first one and lap 29 for our second one. So it was pretty promising to see that, and I think just shows the level of racing as the guys have stepped it up. And I think a lot of practice done this week compared to some other rounds, and it's going to be very important, though, for some of these drivers. Let's check out the series standings, though, as they are after round number 12. Still leading the championship points, of course, is James Scott out in front. Followed by Corey Shepherd behind in second position, then Andrew Dyson in third. Adam Briggs in fourth, so those guys still in the DPR crew together in third and fourth. Tom Freer now moves up to position 5 in the championship with Damien Johnson behind him in 6th. Brian Borg now in 7th. Jordan Ross moves back to 8th position in the championship. Kyle Stokes in 9th. And Thomas Hinds is now in the top 10 again, guys. Dan, there's a few people moving around in that one now. And the Synergy guys, they're just changing their positions at the moment in that top 10.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw last week they were pretty close together, all three. So they're looking pretty handy at the moment. As you say, Thomas Hinds has now come into that. And the points that we're looking at the moment are slightly adjusted, where it is taking into consideration the 2 of 3 drop rounds so far throughout the course of the season. So still one left to go, and we'll wait to see how that does shake it up. But it's looking pretty dominant out front. James Scott, as I say, just shy of 400 points clear now of Corey Shepherd. So, short of having an absolute shocking race, he's in a very comfortable spot going in towards the last 4 to 5 rounds of this championship. He's looking very good. There's still plenty of time, though, for the guys outside that top 10 to gain a few spots, however, and look to see them progressively move their way up through the order as well.
Yeah, well, Norrie, imagine what Michael Taliancic can do if he actually qualifies in the top 10. I mean, he's just outside in 11th, but he's only, sort of 100 points off Thomas Hinds. He definitely could make it into the top 10.
Yeah, you just need to pass a few more cars. I mean, I'd say qualifying will definitely help, but, just keeping the passing going, what's he up to? 50, 52, 53 cars passed?
55 in 3 rounds,
55 in 3 rounds. That's a pretty good number. And, I mean, look, you've had the switcheroo between Jordan Ross and Tom Freer. That was just a bad round for Jordan Ross. He had a DNF, he had a drive-through in the pit lane because he was speeding. And so, there's not too much there that will stop Taliancic, Dodd, Freed, any of those drivers jumping into the 10, because all you need is one bad round and it changes the entire play.
Jaden, you're a little bit further down the championship at the moment and really not going to challenge for that top 10. How does that make you feel comfortable in the last few rounds? Does that mean you can just go out and sort of run your own race?
Yeah, hopefully you push up into that top 25 for the start of next season. Just had a bit of a bad start to the season this year, so yeah, hopefully fix it up. But it means I can go in a little bit more relaxed and just try and race the car through now rather than, put it on for a good points finish.
So in the final couple of big endurances, does that mean you'll not be teaming up with Daniel Lee?
No, not at this stage by the looks of it. I'm hoping I'll have me regular teammate endurance driver back, Matt Clute. Hopefully he'll be back, but he's been away for a little bit now, so hopefully, he'll be back in the car ready to go.
You got a few people around you as well, and a few names we haven't seen at every round, but I mean, you've got Sebastian Flock in front of you, Bradley Vaughan and Brett Loxton. Now, there's been a few tracks where you've been in some tight battles with those guys.
Yeah, it's been good. There's a couple of tracks there where I have been a bit strong this year, and I've been battling the guys I wouldn't usually battle. It's made on for some interesting racing, of course, because I haven't usually raced around them, so I don't really know their style, but hopefully I can get past them guys. They're just another car on the track at the end of the day.
What do you think will be leading into the rest of the championship? I mean, we've got Silverstone, Spa, Brands Hatch and Bathurst. Where do you look to improve there? Is there a certain track that you're more fond of?
Probably looking at the calendar, maybe Bathurst and Brands Hatch are probably my 2 favourite. Silverstone and Spa I've never really liked. So hopefully, I've just got to tell myself I do like them, to hopefully at least have a bit of speed there.
Yeah, definitely got to talk yourself into that one, and I'm assuming a few hours practice as well. But let's hope you can do something this weekend. Like you say, getting that top 25 heading into season 11 is definitely gets you in there in the mix. But I mean, guys, we need to talk about it. Bowler Media and Sideways Photography once again putting out some absolutely fantastic shots this week. And as you can see, our leader there at the front, Rob Bowden there, who did quite well this week. The Simrigs cars, they come up really nice in the photos. But the best one of all is the JINX Shifters safety car, and he's got it right at that moment, hasn't he, where it found the tyre wall?
Well, it was that good. The guys had to get 2 photos of it just to check the action, one from above and one in front. But little awkward to see that car there. But for the other photos, everything that came out looked absolutely spectacular in that circuit.
Yep, and I can't thank them enough for being on board for the remainder of season 10, and can't wait to see what they give us over the next few rounds. But of course, our next round is Friday night. It's another big enduro, so 2 drivers in this one, 650 Ks. It's round 13 coming from Silverstone. We can't wait to get into a lot of turns on this one. 18 turns to get around. Of course, it's going to be super interesting. Another one there where pit exit's going to be super interesting to talk about as well, Norrie, later in this section. But Dan, take us through a lap around what's going to happen at Silverstone.
Yeah, well, Silverstone's going to be a fantastic one, as you say, 650K endurance on Friday night for all the guys to get through. It's a long circuit since the modifications that took place for Formula One. It's now out to 5.89 kilometres, or 3.6 miles for the old language. The real tricky parts of this spot are going to be getting off the start-finish line. You've got a nice run to get up through Abbey. It's a quick right-hander that leads to a very fast-flowing left through Farm Curve down into a very tight braking zone into Village. And we've seen in past championship events there, the guys really have a look to try and make a move down there. The awkward spot can be, though, if you don't quite get that pass done, or if you can get it completed, you run the risk of getting the crisscross put back on you as you work back up through the right-hander of the loop, which is, if not tighter than what the guys just will go through out of Village. Get the power down on the exit is all important, so drive for these cars is going to be really key to see how that goes, and ultimately not spinning up those tyres and taking away life is going to be critical as you work your way out from the loop, down through Arntree, and onto the Wellington Strait, where it presents another opportunity for these guys to go 2 and 3 wide. And we've seen that in past events where they really try to maximise the braking opportunities before you come into Brooklyn, which is very, very quick, left-handed. The road tightens on from the mid-corner out to the exit, but you've got to be careful. You don't want to push too far wide, get over the curb before you set back up for Luffield, which is extremely quick. It slows a lot down, but you can get a crisscross manoeuvre put there. The left-hand side of the car is going to be working exceptionally hard this race to try and get these cars rotated around. So I don't know whether the guys are going to look at something a little bit strategy-wise to maybe set the cars up a little bit asymmetrical and get the cars working on the way out there, but you need good drive from Luffield as you head up through Wakefield. Well, Woodcote, so down onto the old traditional front straight here and down then into Copse Corner, which is a very quick turn. The runoff out on the left-hand side of circuit, and if you get that right, you set yourself up for a great run down through the Maggots, Beckett's, and Copse or Chapel section of the circuit, which is extremely fast. You can use a huge amount of curb, but you've got to be careful as you come through Beckett's because the track does tighten as you come through this phase. So trying to get the car slowed and flowed over those corners is all key. And then, again, working on the exit before you head down to the Hanger Straight, where we saw in season 9, unfortunately, the pass for the lead, and we'll touch on that a little bit later, did take place just after that 4-hour mark, and we saw a different Victor to what we had expected. But from Hanger Straight, you're down into Stowe, a very quick right-hander. The track falls away on exit as you head down in towards Vale. Pit entry on your right-hand side, and then once you get into Vale, which has seen many big incidents, not only in iRacing, but also real life. I think back to Sebastian Vettel in the Formula One. You've got to be careful there. It's a 90-degree corner up through Club, get the car up over the curb on the left and the right, and set yourself up for another run down through the Hamilton Straight.
Yeah, and Norrie, you've done another lap for us around there this week. How did you find it?
Well, Longbean has discussed that my laps give our drivers a curse, and I was willing to put that theory to bed. So I went out and grabbed James Scott's championship leading car and decided to have a lap. And Silverstone is one of those circuits where once you've done it once, you really only want to do one lap. You don't want to do too many because it's a long circuit. But here, have a look at the lap. G'day everyone and welcome to sunny Silverstone for Norrie's navigation ahead of the AOSC 650 endurance race here. I've stolen James Scott's Altus Logitech car and we're going to have a crack down the Hamilton Straight. I'm going to show you a lap of Silverstone down around the 100-metre board, turning it in, across the curve and a bit over to the left of the curve for Farm Cove. Back a couple of gears, right down into second for this really tight apex that is Village. And then we'll want to go all the way deep and then back to first to really pull it up for the loop. As we make our way through the loop, pulling the gears and pulling a bit of power on, using all that exit curve on the right coming out of Aintree and down the Wellington Straight. It's a nice fun course, this one. Back a couple of gears. down into second, and you want to use a little bit of curb here on the left. Make that a lot of curb here on the left, and then you want to use a little bit of curb here on the right. We come through Luffield and head through. Bit of slide on the rear, but you want to use that ripple strip on the left to help the rest of the car. Use the curb on the right, and then on the left as well as you head under the Silverstone sign. Hit the 100 board and then back a couple of gears. Bit of curb on the right here at Cops, and then make your way through down into the famous Maggots and Beckett's. Right, and then left. Back another gear here for Beckett's, and then before you head down left at Chapel Curve. Most of the hard work's done here at Silverstone now, and we're on to the Hangar Strait. This is where you'll use all 6 gears of your varied supercar, and you'll be pulling up to 250 k's, if not more, as you brake and turn right now into Stow. This is a little bit of curve here, you want to use a little bit less of that. And then under the aggregate sign, and then left here for Vale and Club, coming up on the right. Bit of curb on the right, bit of curb on the left. Try and keep the rear of the car settled as around and across the line. That should be a fairly tidy lap here at Silverstone. Let's hope James doesn't have the curse of the other drivers I've driven their cars.
Well, another lap run and done, Norrie, and you've taken out James Scott's car. The question is, did he leave the setup in there for you, or is he giving you he's giving you the standard setup back, hasn't he?
No, he's done the old delete on the setup, and he's given me a stitched up baseline, so that wasn't very fun at all.
What are we going to do this week, Norrie, when it comes to pit stops? I mean, long circuit, Dan already touched on the tyre degradation. How are we going to approach this one?
The thing about a pit stop at Silverstone is that you leave the track at Vale. You don't actually make it to Club. You leave the track at Vale. You need to pack a cut, lunch, and a canoe to get through this pit lane. It's just that long. You probably see a few sideshows on the way through. The pit entry, though, coming off onto Farm Curve, some cars are still trying to get from the right side of the track to the left here to make it to Village. So it's a bit complicated there. Won't have the same difficulty we had at Charlotte, but it's still going to be a painful one. And this week, it's the endurance race. So get yourself a second driver. Get yourself plenty of fuel, because last time we were here, we saw what happened when you missed the fuel marker by a single lap.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting. And we speak about it, pit lane limiters. It's probably going to be super important with a pit that long, Norrie.
Absolutely. You've got to make sure your pit limiter is on. There will be people enforcing that this weekend. Let's hope.
Oh, I tell you what, Jaden, I mean, you've already said it's probably not your most favourite track, but where do you think probably some of the most opportunistic overtaking points?
Looking at the track map, I think probably looking maybe into the turn 2, turn 3, and maybe into the one of the hairpins there. You should be able to get a good pass on there. But other than that, there's fairly tight left-right-handers. I don't see too much happening in them.
What are some of the changes you think you make to the car? Are you worried about that, like Dan said about the car trying to, even it out and that for the tyres?
Yeah, hopefully I can get some sort of changes in to help it out with the springs and stuff. But unfortunately, setups aren't sort of my strong point, so I sort of tend to go the wrong way with them in quali and sometimes in the race. So hopefully I don't go too extreme. I tend to run a pretty straight run setup to not make too many errors with the car.
Well, it's going to be interesting. 650 k's. You got to make sure that setup works for both drivers. Really, that's the other one we've got to look out for, guys, don't we? I mean, sometimes one setup might be really strong for a certain type of driver, Dan, but the second driver gets in, he's not very comfortable in the car.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, as Norrie was saying, you've got another driver in the mix that you've got to be thinking about. So making those compromises to both driving styles is key. And I have no doubt that, obviously we've been to quite a few endurance, and some of the guys probably are looking to carry over a few of those setups, admittedly with a few driver changes. There'll be some fine tweaking that's going to be needed. A lot of data analysis have been done by these teams to work out what they need to do to compromise the setup for a driver who maybe likes it a little more pointy on the front end? Is it something they can just do with a bar adjustment when they make the pit stops, or is it something fundamentally different they've got to approach with setting up the car?
And I mean, James Scott's team has, so much talent in it. Who will he pick? Does it really matter, Norrie?
I don't think so. He's never been short of a decent qualified teammate there before. He's had the likes of Brady Myers and even Caruso at some stage. So I don't think it'll matter who James rolls out with. Just matter is if the Norrie curse rings true, if he has a decent run.
And then people will be giving out money to see who you're going to get, whose car you're going to get in next. I tell you what, you'll be getting paid to stay out of cars.
Yeah, it's a business. It's a business model.
It's a business on the side. I'm actually a bit upset. I'm probably not going to be there this week. I'm going to try and tune in. I do have some other work commitments that might mean I don't make it, but I am really keen to tune in and see exactly what happens. 650Ks always throws a spanner in the works, and all sorts of things happen throughout that. Safety car now, guys. Every week we take the bet now. How many safety cars are we saying, Dan?
I'm going to stick with the safe 2.
Safe 2. Norrie?
3.
3. No, we're going to go 3. Jaden, how many safety cars you reckon?
I'm going to stick with 2. I'll be on the safe side with Dan, as we've seen a common number of 2 happen recently. So, yeah, I'll stay with 2.
Yeah, I'm thinking 2 as well. Only because the track is so long, I think we're going to see a lot more people spread out. We're not going to have that tight track. A little bit of runoff on this one as well. So that'll always help when it comes to incidents. Hopefully, guys, if they go off, will make it back to the pits and not have to get towed. But been fantastic having you on the show, Jaden. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Mate, Dan, Norrie, anything else to say before we wrap this thing up?
No, look, I'm really looking forward to being back on the other side of the steering wheel and letting the professionals take at it for this week.
Norrie, I suppose one thing we do have to mention is if the guys want to jump in Discord, it's a good opportunity for you to grab them in and actually have a chat with them, maybe when they're off their stint or maybe under safety car.
Yeah, the AOSC has its own Discord channel, and you can actually request your team has a Discord channel. If you're happy to, we will grab you out of the car, or once you are out of the car, we'll grab you into the comms box and we'll interview you as you are in the heat of the battle. So come and do that, and don't worry, Matty, we'll look after the show. We won't go too crazy.
Oh, don't worry, I'll be having a few amber ales while you're on there, but it's all right. Don't forget, of course, make sure you tune in AOSC TV on YouTube. Click and like that one for us. Starts a bit early, of course. It's the big one, 650K. So expect to be broadcast to start about 7:25 p.m., of course, Eastern Standard Time, and about 8 p.m. the main race will get underway. So make sure you watch out for that one. You'll see the notification come up if you like the page. Can't wait for you to join us here on the race. Of course, come to you from Silverstone this week. It is round number 13 of AOSC 10. Thanks, guys. We'll see you then.